Yes, you read the title right. I am Melissa, and this is my story of how I scratched all the way into my skull by scratching my head every single night. You see, this isn't an overnight tragedy. I was once a perfectly normal woman who didn't have itching issues, worked a 9-to-5 job, and happily married to the love of my life. That time, I was at my mid-20s, and plot twists rarely come in that stage of life. Mid-20s was the age of contentment, or so they say. Once you reach that age, you've pretty much figured out the rest of your life. But that could not be further from the truth. Life has its ups and downs, and my down point eventually came. When it did, my husband and I started fighting each other. You would think it would get better, but it didn't. In fact, it got worse. We started getting hostile at each other, saying really mean things and sometimes hurting each other physically. It went on for years until we finally decided to call it quits. When we divorced, he took the house and all the other stuff that came with it, and because it was already settled, I couldn't really do anything about it. Since then, everything went downhill. I owed money to a lot of people, I began drinking, and at the process of self-pity, I met a guy. But he wasn't there to save me. No, he was there to make my situation worse. We began drinking together, all day and all night long. Then one night, we decided to do some intimate things in the bedroom. And that's how this all started. A few weeks after, I went to the doctor as I wasn't feeling well. I was nervous. I thought I was going to have a baby, but I wasn't ready. I'm too emotionally and financially unstable to support a child. When the doctor told me his observations, the good news was that I wasn't pregnant. The bad news is, it was way, way worse.
You have HIV, and it seems that you have developed some complications, including shingles, which are those blistering sores across your scalp and forehead.
After hearing what the doctor said, I was dumbfounded. Then I was scared. Then I was mad. When I came home, I was ready to confront my boyfriend. But he wasn't home. I tried calling him, but he blocked my phone number. Then I finally broke down. I had no choice but to leave my work and pay more medical bills so my disease would be controlled. So I decided to get myself together and change for good. I entered rehab, rebuilt my life, and quit drinking. For 2 years, I thought I was finally getting somewhere. I thought I was finally getting better. Until I started feeling the itch. I felt it on the right side of my head at first, but as time went by, it crawled across my scalp. It was painful at first, but eventually the pain became itch. And no matter how hard I scratched, the itch would not go away. It's like the insides of my skull itself was itching. I went to doctors after doctors after doctors, and I tried everything they prescribed, but nothing helped. I followed every single advice, stop wearing makeup or any creams, but still, nothing changed. My scalp still felt the same itching sensation. Everyone just seemed baffled by my condition. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. I had no parasites, no scaling, no fungus, nothing. But I was in immense discomfort. The urge to scratch became increasingly irresistible, to the point that I would have to consciously monitor my fingers not to go near my scalp. But when I was unconscious, such as when sleeping, the situation would get 100 times more difficult. I couldn't control my fingers from scratching. I would scratch, and when I woke up, I would see blood on my pillow. Then things escalated pretty quickly. My head went numb, the itching got severe, and I was getting relentless. I tried all the tricks just to keep myself from scratching, but my nails would always find its way to my scalp. One morning, I got startled by the alarm clock. I sat up, and I felt something running down my neck. I felt it, looked at my fingertips, and this greenish fluid greeted me in the morning. I panicked, covered my head with some piece of cloth, then rushed to the doctor's office. When I arrived there, the doctor examined the fluid, then shined a light on my scalp. From the look of his face, I could definitely sense that something was not right. He looked at me, trying his hardest to compose himself, and turned around to call for assistance to rush me to the operating room. I didn't know what was happening yet, and I was too scared to ask. But when I arrived at the operating room, it was then I learned that I had scratched through my skull during the night and all the way through my brain. I spent the next 2 years of my life inside the rehabilitation hospital. Although I was not mentally ill, I was considered a threat to myself, so they confined me inside a ward. Every night, the nurses would come and put on a silly football helmet and tie my wrists into the bed rail. I also had a crucifix nailed above the bed frame, a single bedside table with a lamp on it. It looked like I was that girl from the Exorcism movie. One day, a sweet young doctor came to my room and introduced herself as Dr. Michelin, and that she would like to operate on my scalp to help me get the itch away. Hearing what she said was like listening to the best news you've heard all your life, and since I was desperate, I agreed. Now I am partially paralyzed on the left side of my body. The operation did not go well. They cut off the main sensory nerve to the front of my scalp, believing that it may have been a nerve problem, but it wasn't. It has been 7 years after I've been released from the rehabilitation hospital. The itch is still there, but I've managed to find new ways to protect myself. I've kept my nails short and only rub on my scalp instead of scratching it. Thankfully, I don't need to wear the silly football helmet and tie myself to the bed rails anymore. So that was the story of me and my itchy scalp. Do you know people who have experienced the same things as I did? If so, make sure to let them know that they are loved and supported. Your effort counts. Please help me spread my story by sharing this video. Thank you.